What's up, everybody, on a beautiful Sunday afternoon? I'm here with the boy, Bryce, third and Schlong. How you doing today?
Better after that Pacers win last night. I was at the game. It was a ton of fun. You know, you don't get like super. It's not always a lock that like your city will have good sports teams.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to take advantage of it while you can. Like, I mean, when's the next time you expect the Pacers to make like the finals?
Well,
I mean, I think the East will be could be down for a bit. Like if Boston
it
breaks
depends
up,
on Tatum. Yeah.
But like I don't know. I could see a window, like there being a window for the Pacers, but they're also like not a big market team, so it's obviously gonna be harder to retain the stars.
To me, this is it right now.
I think so as well. So that's why I've been trying to go to the games when I can. I've never been to an NBA Finals game, so
Me either.
I'm probably
which is why I'm coming.
Yeah, Mark is coming to Indy, and maybe we'll do some content from one of the games. Undecided if it's 3, 4, or potentially both. Tickets are not like insanely expensive because it's Indy against OKC, which is nice. Like if they're in New
Get-in
York,
price was like with fees like $1,000. Usually,
Yeah.
you'd expect it to be higher.
yeah. I mean, if it's in New York, it would be more expensive than the Super Bowl. So it is a decent opportunity to like go to a game at like a reasonable, like
Reasonable-ish.
I mean, I justify it by like I don't know. I'm betting 10 times that in a day.
Yeah.
It's like I can spend, I can take 10% of a losing day or something like that to go enjoy myself. Especially because we don't really get to go to games during the season because especially Pacers games, like there's just no shot if you're playing the slate that you can go. So like even Colts games I never go to because they're always at 1 p.m. Like they never have like
Baseball's
an
really
island
the only
game.
sport. I think that's why we go to so many UFC events, is because you can play and go.
Oh yeah, UFC is like the best to go to because like it's always Saturday evening. Like you just skip the baseball slate or something, and you can go to the UFC stuff. So
Yeah. See, get some comments here. Stevers, I want to wish you a very happy Pride Month, Stevers. Terry, thank you. Had a nice win a few days ago. 100,000. Not thanks to Brian Wu. Although
that was crazy.
Unless you went last night. Well, DC was there last night at the Apex, which is why he's not here right now, because he was with Justin Jacoby after his glorious victory. That was a pretty brutal win too.
I need to go back and watch some of the highlights because I didn't see like any of the card. I saw the main got canceled because the chick had like a seizure.
That was crazy, and it fucked me out of all my money. But got it back on NBA, so whatever.
I saw you won FanDuel for the showdown last night. I was trying to gauge the Tony Bradley stuff in pregame warmups, and it was kind of hard to do.
And they went, and Bryant hit every shot he took.
He hit his first 3, and I'm just like, because I played Tony Bradley over him. I was just like, fuck me.
Yeah, I played Tony Bradley too. I went through my teams, and I don't think I would have won anyway, just because I didn't have a ton of Andrew Nemhard, so whatever.
Yeah, he had his first good game of the series, and his playoff splits have been like absurd in his career.
Yeah,
he really gets it going for playoffs. Yeah, we can stop with the other sports talk. It's the reason why you're here, baseball. Another Sunday in the life.
We'll get to the baseball slate first, and I'm going to start a little out of order. I'm going to start with Milwaukee versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia is about a -155 favorite with an 8 total. Ranger Suarez against Quintana. Do you have any strong takes on this game? Are you playing a lot of the batters or pitchers, or how do you feel about it?
This isn't a game I'm like super high on, like for fantasy in general. I think the best plays are Ranger and the Phillies. You don't have Bryce Harper in the lineup, which to me like just makes it a worse lineup. I'm probably not going to have any. I would prefer Phillies small stacks, like the righties here, Turner, Bohm, Castellanos would be like my preferred one, but like Real Muto is playable as well. I think Sosa's playable as well. I don't like playing the bottom end of this Phillies lineup in general, just because they're all pinch hit risks. So, yeah, I doubt I get to the Milwaukee bats on such a big slate as well.
Yeah, going through it right now, I don't have a single player in this game more than 2% other than Suarez, who I still only have like 4 or 5%. I'm not getting a whole lot of it. Milwaukee, I have basically none. I don't have Quintana at all. So I agree that it's not really a game that I think is worth targeting. Moving to the next game, we got Colorado against the New York Mets. The Mets coming in at a healthy minus 400 with an 8.5 total. Clay Holmes going against Parson Palmquist. I assume that Clay Holmes will be one of the more popular pitchers on the slate. Is that how you feel about it as well?
Yeah, there are like a lot of good pitching options on this slate, but like I think I had Clay Holmes in the cash core, so typically whoever's like in the cash core, it's going to be like fairly chalky. I mean, there's not a lot to be said about Colorado. They're just so atrocious that like anytime like an average to above average pitcher is facing them, they're going to be chalk. So he offers a slight discount against the top range. I'm getting quite a bit of him in my early runs here. I think I'm still waiting on this Baltimore lineup to kind of finalize my files here, but I don't want anything to do with Colorado. The Mets bat should be fairly chalky, but they're also cheap. Like you're getting Starling Marte for $3K.
There's Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore will be one of the.
Let's see: Holiday, Urias, Henderson, O'Hearn, Mayo, Carlson, Mateo, Hierstad, and Handley.
So there's no Rutschman.
No Rutschman.
Yeah. No Rutschman is the big thing there in the Orioles lineup. He was projecting to be like the chalkiest catcher.
I had him a lot,
by a good bit too. So that'll kind of change a little bit of the roster construction that I was going for. I think I had him in my cores on the sites. So yeah, I mean, Arias is probably profiles as a great play here. We can get to that game in a sec here, but yeah,
Mayo's hitting 5 too, and he's only 2,100.
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles are like way too cheap against the White Sox here, but we can get into that. I mean, the Mets are kind of in a weird spot here, like in terms of player pricing, because you have like 3 expensive guys, and then the rest of the lineup is just kind of free. So like I would kind of like start with like Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and then mix in like Marte. I think Torrens is a really strong catcher play now too, without hitting 6th, without Adley in the player pool. So I think the one thing that would change is probably like my Torrens exposure is going to go way up here.
Yeah, I'm getting a ton of the Mets. Well, before this Baltimore lineup, like up over 30% on Juan Soto. Alonso, Starling Marte, as you mentioned, is stupid cheap for hitting 2nd. Luis Torrens at 2,600. Him and Lindor, I'm getting 20% ish too, and Brett Beatty. Even guys like Vientos, I'm getting 10%. So the Mets are one of my highest teams as of now. But with Baltimore putting out such a cheap lineup, that might change. Clay Holmes is my top pitcher today. I don't think that anybody's really going to disagree with that, with a minus 400 money line against the Rockies. So that's pretty much it. Mets are good on both sides of the ball in this game. They're just a lot better, and the Rockies suck ass. Next, we got San Francisco at Miami. Hayden Birdsong against Ryan Weathers. Total of 8. San Francisco coming in as a slight minus 115 favorite. This doesn't seem like a game for bats, but you might like the pitchers. Bryce, how do you feel about Birdsong and Weathers?
Kind of pitchers for me here. I think Weathers is like a pretty good, like lower owned option. Getting a decent amount of him, or like more than I kind of would have expected when I looked at the slate. Like I'm not going crazy on him or anything, but I think he's a pretty solid option. Birdsong's kind of like a fringe option for me. Like he kind of like barely misses my pool. So like I wouldn't. anywhere from not playing him to like I wouldn't go above like 10% on him, probably. If you're playing like 10 or 20 lineups, I wouldn't even like try and get him. I do have more interest in Weathers here. I think he's a high upside arm for 7,400.
He's been playing really well.
And if you look at the pricing, Gavin Williams is 7,500, and I think that he's just like, I think the field will click him like way more than Weathers here, and I have them like fairly even. So I think it's like a decent leverage spot, because you're getting direct leverage on someone priced the same, and like you don't really need the savings today. So I doubt people are going to go like double cheap pitcher. So
yeah, no, totally agree.
They probably won't play them together. It'll be like Crochet or like Holmes or like one of the expensive guys and like a cheap guy if you're playing a cheap pitcher.
Yeah, the only real bat I'm getting in this game is Jesus Sanchez hitting second for Miami at 36. Basically, no San Francisco bats. Don't get any Birdsong. Getting Weathers about 20%. So I'm fairly high on Weathers as well. I think it's a decent matchup for him. I bet on the Marlins. So I think that's a good option for today. Next, looking at Cincinnati at Chicago. Chicago coming in minus 155. Jameson Taillon against Nick Martinez. Over under of 7. It's come down from 7.5. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this game. The Cubs have been, very good this year. I think they have the better pitcher in this matchup. Are you targeting anything in Chicago?
I don't really play Wrigley win games. The Sims were trying to give me like a lot of this game, and I can't do it. That's not really a click I want to make here. Wrigley win totals are just drop like crazy sometimes, and this is one of those spots, and I just don't really mess with it. I think you can make an argument for either pitcher. This Cubs lineup is super tough. I would much prefer Taillon to Martinez, but he's not cheap. 8,800. It's kind of tough to get to, like to justify that over like a Clay Holmes to me. So I think this is probably the game I'm going to be absolutely lowest on.
I agree. I don't have a single hitter over 2%, and I've only got Taillon about 3%. I don't have Martinez at all. I would like Taillon, but he's priced up. He's too expensive. So this game's pretty much a dud for me. Next, we'll go to the other Chicago team. White Sox playing at Baltimore. And, obviously the line on Baltimore is cratering right now with the lineup that they just put out having so many backups in it. They've gone from minus 175 to minus 145 since that lineup was put out. And the total is down from 9 to 8.5. Adrian Hauser against Charlie Morton. Can I interest you in any Adrian Hauser against all these fucking AAA bums that Baltimore's putting out
there? Probably not. I think that there's like better pitching options today. I just don't think that he has the upside, even if he has like a good game, to like really be in the winner. Like I think they need to start pricing some of these White Sox pitchers at like, I don't know, 5K flat. And maybe it'll garner some interest, but yeah, I mean, Baltimore's super cheap. I think it's one of the bigger talking points on the slate. I prefer like the Mets to them. I think that Baltimore might go like crazy owned here just because of how cheap they are. But with the line crater, and like you said, I kind of prefer an underweight stance. Like I'm thinking that these guys are going to be like the highest owned team on the slate now, just because they're like free. I would much prefer like say the Mets to them if you're looking at comparing team stacks here.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree with you. I know it's going to give me a lot of Baltimore, and I'm going to stick with it. But I'm sure it'll give me a lot of Mets too. It'll probably give me a lot of Baltimore Met combos. I think that's what most of the field is going to do. Play Clay Holmes, play a big Met stack, play the shitty Baltimore guys, and then you can pitch Crochet or fucking Hunter Brown with it because of how cheap Baltimore is. So I think that's pretty much the standard build today. I'm going to have a ton of them. the pitching interests me a lot less. I'm getting 0 Charlie Morton even at 5,400 against the White Sox, which seems insane. But that's that. Definitely not pitching Hauser. So there you go. That this is a really important game, but it's pretty one-sided. Although with the line only being minus 145 now, I assume that White Sox batting projections are going to go up in tandem with it a little bit, but because they have a better chance to win the game. But other than that, I'm only getting their batters like 1-2%, not a whole lot. Next, let's see, we got Oakland at Toronto. Toronto coming in at a minus 265 on DraftKings. Over under of 8. JP Sears pitching against Kevin Gausman, the gas can himself. This line opened at 195 and has gone up a fuck ton. I assume Gausman's been getting steamed pretty much every game, and he's been pitching well the last few. Are you getting a lot of Kevin Gausman? Are you getting a lot of the batters, or how do you feel about it?
I'm getting a ton of Toronto here. It should be one of my biggest buys compared to the field. These hitters don't project like crazy high owned. Like I think people will go to like the Mets, the Orioles, etc., instead of Toronto. And you get a super cheap Toronto lineup like Kirk, Barger, Clement, or like average
Heroes
like
that were on the 100K team the other day.
Yeah, I mean, this Toronto team they're a low strikeout team and theoretically lower upside team, but when you're facing these shitheads that are the Oakland pitching staff, it's a pretty good spot for them. The one thing I do hate about playing against Oakland is like, if you're not having a great hitting game, like they'll bring in like their good relievers. Like the front end and the back end of their bullpen is such like a juxtaposition that like I think it almost always makes them great tournament plays because like the back end of their bullpen is so bad and you'll get the back end of the bullpen if the starter's not doing well. So I think that Toronto is like a really good alternative to some of the chalk and like a decent way to get off of it. I could see them getting steamed a bit just because like they've been really good and they're cheap. And they're facing JP Sears at home. But I kind of think that people will just like gravitate towards the Orioles and the Mets instead of them. I do like Toronto a lot here. And then Kevin Gausman, I think he's a solid play. I think he's it's a really good leverage spot against like Clay Holmes. I could see Clay Holmes. I don't like really see him getting blown up, but like, Gausman can easily outscore him just in terms of strikeout volume. So while I think Clay Holmes is like the safer play here for sure, I do like Gausman a lot.
Yeah, I'm getting a fuck ton of the Toronto bats as well. It's similar logic to Baltimore now. They're just so cheap. David Schneider, 2K, Barger, 2,800, Clace, 26, Straw, 28, Clement, 26. You can literally make an entire 5-man Toronto stack of guys in the 2000s and then just pitch Crochet and Brown. So they're definitely going to be I think they're going to be more owned than you think they are. I'm definitely going to have them a lot. As far as Gausman, yeah, I mean, I don't like him as much as Clay Holmes, but it's a significant pivot, and they're roughly the same price. So definitely going to have like 20-25% on Gausman probably. I think he's a really good play. So, and Toronto, they've been smashing. So, they're certainly going to have some people that are just riding the wave, I think, as far as them getting ownership today. All right, so next game we got is the Los Angeles Angels against the Cleveland Guardians. Jack Kokanovich, did I get that? Against
I don't
Gavin
know how
Williams.
to say him. I've never known how to say his name because I never talk about him because I never fucking play him. So he's just kind of out of my mind in terms of baseball, like hierarchy and players I care about, like talking about. I never play him. Not a great spot for him.
Yeah, against Gavin Williams. Cleveland's coming in at minus 200, over under of 8, juice to the over. This one also opened at minus 165 before heavy money came in on Cleveland. Do you have interest in Gavin Williams or the bats for the Guardians here?
Yeah, I like Gavin Williams a good amount. I mentioned Ryan Weathers as like a leverage play over him, but I still like Gavin Williams. Like, I think it's viable to like play both in your files. When Los Angeles has played as like much more of a hitter's park than you would expect it to, and Cleveland is like definitely not in this weather. So Gavin Williams has a lot of upside for 7,500 in terms of strikeouts. Against like a super right-handed lineup. I think there's only 2 lefties in the lineup today for the Angels. So love to see that. I would consider him in cash if the batters you wanted like weren't so cheap. Like, I don't think you need to like go crazy with cheap pitching, but he is my favorite cheap pitcher here. Cleveland bats, they're kind of cheap. Jose Ramirez is like a stud that'll go like completely unowned here, or like super underowned for his upside. I do prefer the lefties here, and in small stacks. So like Ramirez and like another 2 lefties like Manzardo, and then Martinez is sitting second for 3,200, which is super cheap on him. I don't think it's like a bad small stack at all.
Yeah, Cleveland, I'm getting a decent amount. Angel Martinez, as you mentioned, 3,200, hitting second, getting him about 15%. Jose Ramirez, I'm always going to get a decent amount of. The other guys, I'm getting them all like mid single digits, so they'll be in the mix. There are just better plays out there. I agree on Gavin Williams. I've got him almost as much as Hunter Brown. He's like my 4th highest pitcher right now. I think that he's a great play against the Angels. They strike out a ton. They suck shit. So, I don't mind playing Gavin Williams whatsoever at 7,500. Next up, we got Detroit at Kansas City. Chris Bubich against Kaider Montero. Kansas City opened at minus 130. They now sit at minus 162 with an over-under of 8.5. Kind of seems like KC bats might be a target here. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think Bobby Witt's one of the best individual plays. KC to me is like a lower upside team. I'm never like crazy over on them, but I love playing them in small stacks. I kind of view this game like the Guardians, to be honest. Like, I like the home team in small stacks, and I like the pitcher. I like Bubich here. Rave hitting leadoff for 2,100 is going to find his way into some builds for sure. I think that like starting with like him, Witt, and then you kind of pick a one-off. Like, I mean, Vinny and Perez still have some upside for like low 3Ks. I would just like make sure that Bobby's in your Royal stacks here. Detroit bats, big slates. These like 3 total teams, like 3.5 total teams, just don't really make my pool.
Yeah, I'm not getting as much of the batters. Bobby Witt, I'm not even getting 10% on. Maybe I have more faith in Montero than other people, but Detroit, I'm getting 0 of the batters. Bubich, I've got 16% right now, so less than even like Ryan Weathers, but he's just priced really high. 9,600 is a lot for a pitcher with his profile against a good team in the Tigers. So I'm just not as interested in this game in general. I think despite the relatively high total for the pitchers, 8.5 with Bubich is high. You're used to seeing 7.5s there for him. So I'm not like mega interested in the batters when maybe I should be. Next, we got Tampa against Houston. Taj Bradley against Hunter Brown. This one's a little suspect because Houston with Hunter Brown pitching opened at minus 210, and they are now sitting at a minus 160 at some outs. So it has moved heavily in Tampa's favor despite Hunter Brown pitching. I know I bet on Tampa. Are you down on Hunter Brown relative to the field? How do you feel about it? Are you pitching Taj Bradley? talk about this one.
Don't really have any Bradley here. I just think there's way better options. Not a buyer on him in the spot, even with the line movement. Hunter Brown is too expensive to me. 11,000 on this slate. Like, it's gettable, but like I'm getting a lot more Crochet than him. Hunter Brown comes in to me like a 15 to 20% type of play. Like, I think you'll actually get some leverage. I think he comes in like super low owned, just because of Crochet and some of the other pitching options, and like he is like fairly prohibitive to your lineup. Like, if you want to play like a him and Crochet pairing, and I think Crochet is the much better play, but it's not like Crochet's like, he's still facing Atlanta. Like, there's definitely some blow up risk there, while there's a lot of upside. So I think having like wherever you stand on Crochet, I would have like double the amount of Crochet compared to Brown. That's kind of that ratio, just in terms of how many lineups you're playing would like sound good to me. Houston bats, I do think have some upside here. They're still cheap. I'm not getting like tons of them or anything, but I'm probably going to play like 5 to 10% of them, and I think that's like fairly over the field here. Bradley's like a widely variable arm, and when he's off, he's like very off. So I kind of like stacking against him in general. It's not something I like absolutely love, but these guys are going to be like 2%.
Yeah, the line movement's suspect to me. Is that backing Bradley? Is it fading Brown? I tend to think it's fading Brown. I don't really have a ton of faith in him at 11K today, but again, the leverage is going to be insane, so I'm still going to play him like 25-30% probably, just because you don't need the salary, and he still is a mega upside pitcher. I feel similarly about the Houston bats. The only guy I'm getting in double digits is Yainer Diaz, probably just because he's a catcher. Everybody else getting around 5%, so I assume that'll be over the field. Not getting any Tampa bats, but it's a really, really suspect line movement to me in this one. So, I would beware a little bit if you pitch Hunter Brown a ton. Next, St. Louis at Texas. Eric Fetty against Jacob deGrom. Texas coming in at minus 160, over under of 7.5. deGrom coming off the first start of his career where he had 0 strikeouts. Does that bother you? And are you worried he might be getting a little arm fatigue or got an injury going?
I know VIP mentioned, he's our resident Rangers expert here, that it was blister concerns for him. So not something that like I really want to buy into. I'm assuming that he wouldn't be pitching if it was still an issue. But I not crazy high on this game overall. I think deGrom's an interesting leverage spot just because nobody's going to play him, and just because of how bad he was last game against Toronto. I would probably prefer him to Hunter Brown as like a leverage type of play, to be honest. You're saving 700, and I think both these guys go like super low owned compared to like these other pitching options we've talked about. So I think that's like an interesting way to get different. If you do want to play like some of the chalkier cheap bats, I don't like Fetty. I never like Fetty. I think he's been one of the luckiest pitchers in baseball this year. And like, while the Rangers have not been a team I love to target, they do have some upside bats here. Like Langford, Seager, Young, I think is like a super, super solid stack. Oswana, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name, but I think he's like a decent prospect, hitting 5th today for 2,200. Don't hate Rangers stacks here. Kind of in the same boat as Houston, but I like them more than Houston as like a very low owned leverage play.
I'm getting a ton of Rangers bats. Wyatt Langford's my number 1 hitter today right now. I'm getting Jake Berger almost 30%, Jung in the 20s, Semien in the 20s, Heim in the 20s, Osuna in the 20s, Seager in the 20s. This is like either my highest or my second highest team. I agree. I think Fetty sucks. I think that he's run really hot, and I think the Rangers could put up a big number today. so I'm playing them quite a bit. As far as Jacob deGrom, I'm less inclined to go there, just because I'm wary of blisters or anything with him. He's so fragile that the downside is just very high, and it's unnecessary at 10,300. Obviously, he could pitch really well, but at that price, 30 might not be enough. If Crochet and Hunter Brown both go crazy, 30 won't be enough. It's kind of an unnecessary risk to me. I'm only playing him like 10%. Not playing Fetty at all. Think he's going to get whacked. So not really interested in that. But Texas bats here for sure. Next we got, this is the last game of the slate, Boston at Atlanta. The aforementioned Garrett Crochet against Bryce Elder. We have Boston at -115 off of an opener at -130 with an over-under of 8. So some steam coming in on the Braves. I know I bet on the Braves. Crochet is priced up despite it being a fairly tough matchup. How do you feel about how he's going to do against the Braves today? Are you playing him a ton, or are you kind of getting off the train because of it being in Atlanta?
Well, Atlanta's, with Acuna back, a much better lineup. I think that Crochet has the most upside of any arm. I also think that there's legitimate downside risk in this matchup. Like normally when you're paying for an ace, you want I don't know. I want to feel safe playing him. I don't really feel safe playing Crochet. I have about 35% of them. In a vacuum, he's my highest projected pitcher, but just slightly over the Holmes type of guys. So excuse me. If he gets steamed a lot, then I might actually be under on him. But I think people are going to look at the Atlanta matchup and kind of worry about it. This is kind of one of those sides where I like being exposed to both sides. If he gets blown up, you get a bad Red Sox pen behind him with bats that are going to be 1% with direct leverage on them. But I wouldn't go crazy on Atlanta bats or anything. I do prefer Crochet on this side of the matchup. Boston bats, I don't like stacking against Bryce's, just out of pure like for the name. But yeah, they're kind of the team that they're kind of like Houston for me. I'm not going to be playing tons, but if absolutely no one's on them, I'm likely going to be over. I think I had a decent amount of Duran. I think he's the best play here. So I would start your stacks with him. I do prefer small stacks once again with some of these leverage style teams. What's your take on Crochet?
I'm getting him a lot, but not as much as Clay Holmes. He's my second highest pitcher right now, mid-30s. Certainly a better play than Hunter Brown at 300 cheaper. But, significant downside risk. He can go high. He can also get fucking hit. And I do like Atlanta to win the game. So I guess that's a little bit of a hedge in my own mind. People will call me out for fence riding, but I'm playing Crochet in DFS and betting on Atlanta and going from there. As far as the hitters, I don't have anybody for Atlanta. The issue with playing Atlanta as a contrarian play is that they are all expensive as fuck for some reason against Crochet. So not really interested. I think I may have Acuna in one lineup. Beyond that, Boston, I think it's a pick and choose specific guys. I really am only getting Rafael Devers and Duran more than 4 or 5%, despite Bryce Elder being terrible. I just don't have a lot of faith in this lineup they're putting out. It kind of sucks. So big reason why I'm betting on Atlanta. And so it's just those two for me, mainly Devers and Duran, Louisville or Abreu. See some sneaky pitchers on DraftKings. There isn't a lot of sneakiness today. It's pretty clear options, but I would say Ryan Weathers would be the one. Bryce, you agree with that?
Him for cheap and Bubich for me. in kind of the expensive range. Like, I think that people will think leverage is like, oh, it'll just be like DeGrom and Brown, but I'm getting just as much Bubic as them. I'm projecting him way lower owned. So Weather's cheap, Bubic expensive.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the slate for Third Inch Long. I'm JBC. Not your regularly scheduled Sunday programming, but it was certainly some programming. Goodbye.